Today, let's welcome Tom Blewitt, Chief Technical Officer of Connected Technologies with UL, and Brian Davis, Global Market Development Director with Corning Optical Communications. We're talking about the industry's very first smart buildings assessment and rating system. It's called SPIRE. And Tom and Brian, frankly, it's something I predicted a few years ago as an editor tracking all the various trends going on in the industry. And we started to kind of write about smart buildings, the very first sort of iteration of the edge and some of the leading smart building projects out there across the world. And I think the editors, we came to this conclusion that the smart buildings trend ties into so many things that are important to building owners, occupants, and AEC teams. I mean, we're talking green and energy efficiency, high performance design, occupant comfort, indoor air quality, health and wellness, increased value of the property. You could probably charge a higher lease rate, resilience, and now you get into the health and safety factors of a pandemic, and are people comfortable coming back to buildings, and it being a smart building, there's probably a greater chance that they are feeling good about coming back to a building every day. So that's my little lead in. But Tom, I'd love to have you talk about the SPIRE program. What is it? Is it just a lead USGBC lead type approach to a smart building, the smart building trend? Can you kind of give us an overview of what SPIRE is?
Absolutely, and I was interested in the way you started the introduction and why a smart building program will stand out, has value. And that's actually part of a little bit of the story behind choosing even the name SPIRE. You know, throughout history, the buildings that had these spires stood out in their communities. It was a way to let people know from a distance at one time, and today it would be the same idea, to let people know that your building, your smart building, does stand out on the basis of its smart outcomes. Mm-hmm. And so that SPIRE itself is an objective, outcome-based smart building assessment program. It holistically looks at building technology and how that technology, more importantly, is deployed to enable smart outcomes. It's really important not just that you have the technology, but that you actually get the desired outcomes. SPIRE is really the result of a couple of years, a little more, of development by industry-leading experts. We've had over 60 companies involved in the development of SPIRE, along with the TIA and UL expertise that we brought to the table. And collectively, all of this expertise essentially resulted in an assessment framework of what I'll call like probing questions that are designed to determine how a building achieves the outcomes of smart outcomes in 6 specific subject areas. We call them smart building criteria. So power and energy is one area, life and property safety is another, cybersecurity is a third, health and well-being, as you mentioned before, is another, connectivity, of course, is one, and then sustainability. And so all of this collectively is packaged in a tool, an online tool that allows a building owner, a major tenant, management company operators and the like to be able to do a self-assessment of their property, their building. And so today that self-assessment's available online, and it's accessible, you know, to anybody who wants to use it. Who registers for the program. And in the future, SPIRE will also, that self-assessment will be supplemented by what we call a full on-site evidence-based assessment that will ultimately lead to a building rating. So that's, I mean, in a big nutshell, that's what SPIRE is.
So Brian, I'd love to turn to you, obviously, as one of the first sort of, I don't know if it's a pilot project, but certainly one of the early adopters of SPIRE. What made you and your team get involved in this? I'd love to hear it from your perspective as a real estate sort of asset professional.
Yeah, sure, Dave. So it's Corning, and I happen to be standing in the very building that is one of the first pilot projects for the SPIRE program. And as we look out, and you guys have already mentioned in a couple of ways about the kind of the difficulty or all the considerations we need to take in accounting for a smart building and what we're going to need it to do. And so when we think about trying to line up those requirements and planning and put all this together, I mean, we start out this journey of a new building of knowing we wanted a building that would integrate well with technology, but at the same time, we needed a building that would work well for the people. And we knew that, like, we got to have help planning for this, and looking at the assessment tool helps us make sure that we, stood in the right place or met a comprehensive set of criteria to make sure that the outcome, as Tom said, that the smart outcome would be there. So it just helped validate a lot of what we were trying to do. We did have real good ideas about what we wanted to do to begin with, but the assessment tool really helped us validate what we were doing.
And then Brian, like the LEED system, there are certain areas that are sort of easier. We always call them low-hanging fruit, but certainly areas of the program that were easier to achieve than others. Do you find that to be the case with SPIRE? Are there certain areas where, like, wow, we're just not there yet because of various factors, whether they be investment costs or the complex nature of them? For the audience, I'm sure they'd be curious about what your thoughts are as far as going down the 6 different sort of categories in SPIRE.
Yeah, I think we're blazing a new trail for a lot of people. I mean, we've been talking about smart buildings for quite some time. And as we look forward to thinking, and let me retract that, not as we look forward, as we stand today, we use networks in a much, much different way than we used to. Networks used to be just to manage the business. Now we look at, as you said, Dave, we use networks to manage the comfort, the security, even health and wellness inside of buildings. And so as you step through that criteria, I think some of it is when you have these considerations, it can be a little bit overwhelming, and can I really get all this done? Then when you put the whole comprehensive set of requirements or the outcome of what you put together, I think it does simplify it. So I wouldn't point to any one area that is more difficult than the other. I think that probably the biggest thing is what the SPIRE program drives to for companies like Corning building a smart building, or for companies, as ourselves, that are helping our customers figure out what they need in their smart buildings. It's going to be more about a mindset change, as we have to do it differently than what we've been doing it in the past. Building networks and buildings the same manner we've done the last 3 decades is just not going to work. It's not going to give us a positive, smart outcome.
And this is the question for both of you. I mean, obviously you have several dozen partners, tech partners that are a part of this program. Is the technology there to make smart buildings work right now? I mean, we're seeing advancements happen so quickly, so many new products. Is that infrastructure there for you as sort of a building owner, Brian, and then as an expert at UL? Is the framework there right now?
Yeah, the framework is here. I think that the capabilities exist. I'll tell you a little bit about what we did specifically in our building. And going back to what I was saying about evolving use cases and putting more and more on our networks as we manage more than just the business. And what that's done, these evolving use cases and the way that we use networks today is much different. And it's driving more and more devices at the edge of the network. And so when we think about from a connectivity point of view, we can't afford the space, the labor, the materials to run a physical cable to every device in the building. We have tremendously more devices in the building now. And plus, we don't connect with all those devices on a wired, tethered basis anymore. We connect more through wireless technologies. And so I think about that, again, going to the idea of what's available and what can we do. My laptop, my 2 phones, my tablet, the security cameras, the Wi-Fi access points, the cellular access points, thermal scanning cameras that we have at the entrance of the entrances of our buildings. All these devices sit there. The beautiful thing is they can all be sitting on the same network. And we put in place in this building a fiber infrastructure where we're collapsing and connecting multiple devices at the edge over a single cable. And what we do is we save on 50% of our pathways that it takes to actually house all those cables. Or we reduce the linear feet of cable by 70%. Or we reduce the central location areas called telecom closets or intermediate distribution frames. You can reduce 2/3 of those. And those are specific areas that house networking gear, because we can take advantage of a single layer of infrastructure over single mode fiber, because now I can go further. Now I can eliminate the construction of those spaces in the building and the specific heating and powering and cooling requirement to go there. So I build a smarter network that's capable of doing everything I need to do today for less money, less resources, and less operational costs in the future, that also affects the actual architecture of the building itself. And to me, that's really a smart building, the holistic approach where it all comes together.
Mm-hmm. And then we see with, some of the other trends, resilience, green, sustainability, interest from, the insurance industry, financial, lending industries in these programs, because they feel like they add more value to the end real estate asset, right? So are you getting a sense of the same sort of feeling here, where the banks are interested in smart buildings because they feel like this is going to be sort of the new Class A or new Class A plus?
From my standpoint, it's what you described is very logical. I mean, we fully expect that everyone is going to obviously, look at the return on investment, and so any way in which you're able to articulate why an investment is worth doing and how that might ultimately add to the value for your property is certainly a quiver you want to have, in your with you. And so I think our experience at this stage of the game is that folks are on the cutting edge, are looking because they want to create a signature, type of a building. And they may be doing that on their own interests and to enhance the brand or to work, to do something for their employees or tenants. And then others are looking at, okay, well, how can I, again, distinguish my building from my competitors? So we see, there's always at the end of the day, follow the money, where's the opportunity. So I expect that will emerge more. And I think perhaps, maybe Brian has more direct experience on that end.
Yeah, I mean, to be able to point to concrete figures where, this building owner was able to rent the space at 12% higher than his neighbor competing building. I don't think we're there yet. I would say this, and it kind of goes back to the logical aspect of it, like Tom mentioned, but you see it playing out in other areas where neighborhoods are chosen based on technology needs. If I can look at somewhere where I want to live, I want to take into consideration what kind of internet connectivity do I have? What are my available entertainment options? So you see those decisions being made in multi-dwelling units and rental areas, apartments and the like. You see, if there's two buildings standing side by side, there has to be a competitive play for technology, because it's so important, especially to the generation that's coming up behind my generation. It's a huge deal, and it is a differentiator in terms of being able to have value of one property over the other. I mean, here at Corning, we think about this as our building, but I can tell you that when we moved into this building, this was a much better place to work than where we just came from. With not only the space, and it's new and it's beautiful and it's polished, but the technology. We did a wireless first environment here. So it's completely mobile. We have high availability AV. There's just a lot of technology built into the building that makes a difference in how I can work. And when I think about that and I translate that to if I'm a business owner and I'm selecting a property on behalf of my employees, I want to create that working environment that's perfect for them, that they're going to be able to be efficient and enjoy being in. To me, that's going to translate to value. It may not be here yet in terms of hard numbers, but logically you can see this taking place.
Yep, I agree. Well, Tom Blewitt, Brian Davis, thank you so much for your time. The SPIRE program is exciting, and congratulations, Brian, for being one of the pilot innovators as far as smart buildings go. Great stuff. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. It was great talking.
Thank
to
you, Dave.
Bye-bye.